Welcome into this place. Welcome to this broken vessel. Listen, this is Dr. Yvonne Pointer McCreary. We are live in the Hope Haven outlet. I am just going to get right to the point because I have an amazing guest with me tonight. One that I can't hardly believe. First time here. And y'all need to just, Renee, start telling people everywhere. This is going to be big and this is epic. You have to pray my strength too. Because I got to be honest, I wasn't feeling it today. So I just was praying through so we can get this done. Amen. We've had an amazing day. God has been good. I want you to remember to pray for the family of Barbara Bradford Williams. I want you to pray if you'd like to be a blessing to the children in Ghana or to help us build the center in her name. I forgot my phone. It's in the other room. I think I need to go get it. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. You know, it's a shame with Mr. Jerry not here. Laverne, I can't find nothing. Oh, Jesus, I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. Anyway, I'm hoping you all are having a wonderful day. I want you to know that God is still on the throne. He's doing great and marvelous things. We want you to remember to keep Sylvia Bennett Stone in prayer. Keep the Woodson Center in prayer and all the mothers of VBMU. We want you to pray for Lady Gilmore. We want you to pray for those that are standing in the need of prayer. Pray for children. Pray for mothers. Pray for missing children. Pray for women. Pray for our government. Pray for those that have the rule over us. Amen. If you have a prayer request, would you put it up? I'm not going to waste any more time because I don't know how long my strength to hold up, Myra. But I have the Paul Hill in the Hope Haven. Mr. Hill, would you come on and join me? I'm going to cut my introduction short because this is big. Y'all better tell somebody. Oh, my God. Myra, we're building the center there in Ghana in Barbara's name. But I can't talk no more because I cannot believe who is in the Hope Haven. I can't even believe, first of all, that he's here. I can't believe, second of all, that he's never been here before. This is just incredible. Oh, I'm so honored, so thrilled. So honored, so thrilled.
It's a pleasure and honor being here.
So honored. Did you know he's going to be on live?
No. This is live?
This is live.
Oh.
People all over the country is watching.
Oh.
So before we get into who you are, thanks for gracing my space with your presence, with your spirit, with everything. I'm just honored to have you here, a man of your stature. But before we get to who you are now, would you do us a favor? Mm-hmm. Tell us about the little boy Paul. Where was he born? What was his childhood like? We like to know who people were so we can celebrate who they are.
I was born November 6, 1945.
Wow.
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland.
And I was born on Kinsman, close to 55th.
Now, what was that like? Because was that when the market was there on the corner?
Yes, it was. At the Mary B. Talbert Salvation Army Hospital.
Wow.
It's no longer there, but it was that was the bustling downtown Cleveland for black people at that time.
On 55th?
55th,
on Woodland.
in the central area.
Wow.
And lived in the projects, Case Court. My brother was in town the other day, and I told him I had somewhere I wanted to take him. So I took him over on Case Court in the projects. And in the projects where we live, the apartment is still there.
Get out of here.
We couldn't believe it. because that was some of the first public housing within the United States at that time, right in the central area of Cleveland, Ohio.
Now, were you there when Carl and Louis Stokes lived in that area?
Well, no. My father was, because my father went to school with Louis and Carl,
Get out.
Central High School, and they all and this is when my father had migrated to Cleveland from Alabama, from Birmingham, Alabama.
Now, you know, I live in Birmingham. I'm by state. So
Oh.
my husband lives in Birmingham. And so we go back and forth.
Okay, well, that's the hometown. Well, really, Pittsview, Alabama, but my father was brought up in Birmingham.
Wow.
So they ended up migrating, lived in, and then we grew up in.
So what was life like then in comparison to now?
You know what stands out, because my father was one of the early warriors that were part of the Future Outlook League that was founded by John Holly. The main post office in Cleveland, Ohio on Orange Avenue, most people don't know this. I usually ask them that, you know, what's the name of it? And most people don't know, but the name is the John O. Holly Hospital. And that was an honor that Louis Stokes, you know, when he was in the House of Representatives.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the one that changed the name of the main post office on Orange. Or he didn't change it when they built it. He was the one that came up with the name, the John O. Holly Post Office.
Now, may I ask who is John O'Holly? I don't even know.
I'm sorry. John O. Holly was the founder of the Future Outlook League.
Future Outlook
And
League.
it was founded in the late 30s. And the Future Outlook League, this predated, you know, the marches and the boycotts. It started with the Future Outlook League, and John O. Holly had a motto, and his motto was, "Do not buy anywhere from anybody where they will not hire you."
Wow.
So
was he a Clevelander?
You know, I don't think he was.
I wrote his name down.
He was from Georgia.
Okay.
He was originally from Georgia. And, you know, he came up with this idea, you know, of starting this organization based on, you know, trying to secure equal job opportunities for black people.
Wow.
And then when my father moved up here from Alabama, you know, he became a member of that organization. But prior to him becoming a member of that organization, I was just reading a book on the Future Outlook League and John O. Holly. And in the book,
Future Outlook League,
he talked about there were 15 people that he had called together at his house to talk about this idea and to see if they would be supportive of him. And 2 of the 15 people were my father's uncle, Albert Porter, and his sister. So they were the first 2 members, you know, of the Future Outlook League as far as establishing it. And then that was followed up by my father and my father's cousin, James Wilson, and other family members being part of that organization.
So is that where who you are started? You were raised in that atmosphere?
I was raised in that atmosphere. I remember my father taking my brother and I to, you know, where they were headquartered was over the market on 55th. A lot of people don't realize there was a market on 55th. And up above that market was the headquarters of the Future Outlook League. And one of the things that stood out to me were these black men and women coming together, because black men and women had equal roles within this organization. And this had to be the early 50s.
And was that before the Civil Rights Movement?
Oh, yeah, this was before the Civil Rights Movement.
Wow. Listen, y'all better share this.
Yes, this was before the Civil Rights Movement. And they came up with, you know, there were certain stores where we would spend our money, such as Woolworths, Ohio Bell, and we would, you know, they would have pickets. And I remember my brother Ron and I at that time, because I was born in 45, so I had to be like maybe 7, 8 years old at that time, and we would go, you'd be out on the picket line passing out literature. But the Future Outlook League, some of the outcomes of the Future Outlook League as a result of them, there was you know, the first black elevator operator was because of the Future Outlook League that they ended up hiring. And this person's name was Arthur Woods.
I remember Arthur Woods.
The first black elevator
outta
operator
here.
for Ohio Bell. As a result of the work of the Future Outlook League, she was one of the first ones to get a job.
Now, what about, wasn't Ruby Terry somewhere in there with Ohio Bell and something she was inducted about being the first something at Ohio Bell?
Well, I know who Ruby Terry is, but I'm not familiar with her history with Ohio Bell.
Wow.
But I know that Arthur Woods, she ended up moving all the way up as a result and becoming a supervisor at one time at Ohio Bell before getting involved in politics.
So 55th was like the Black Gold Coast.
Oh, yes, it was.
What was that hotel on 55th and Quintessential? Or
Well, you had the Hotel Wills.
Yeah.
On 55th.
Yeah.
You also had East Tech High School where
Yes.
Jesse Owens was a student and a famous track star. It started at East Tech High School. Harrison Dillard also.
Wow.
And it was a technical high school. It was majority white at the time, and even though a lot of blacks, went there, but that was on 55th. Of that, when you talk about the, blacks, and they usually refer to Cleveland as Alabama North. Even a book written about Alabama North, because the majority
Alabama North.
When you talk about migration. When you talk about migration, it was migration to the east, to the Cleveland area and west, and that would depend on the routes of the trains. And most of the folks that came from Alabama, from Tennessee and Georgia, ended up in Ohio, specifically Cleveland and Detroit, because of the jobs and the steel mills, the automobile manufacturing companies. All that was in the Cleveland, Detroit area.
So, did you ever go back down south, or?
Well, one thing that I remember that stands out about my mother and father, they never talked much at all, hardly any at all, about their experiences, in the South.
Okay.
Later in life, when they became elderly and seniors, and I talked to them about it, but I remember my father saying that, in Birmingham, his experiences there were so negative that, he was really traumatized. He was really suffering. Both of them were suffering from post-traumatic stress.
My mother never talked about it.
Never talked about it.
She said, I just don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. There were relatives that would come and visit us. I know my mother had cousins, because she was from Selma, Alabama. And there were relatives that would come up and visit. But never talked about, and the only time I remember going back was when I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old, and that was his mother's mother.
Wow.
In Selma, Alabama.
So, Cleveland, you've seen the transformation. Not that it's bad or good, but what's most memorable about communities even back then?
Well, what's memorable, and I kind of differentiate between now and then, even though I try to emulate it relative to my own family life experience with my wife and my children,
who we love.
But family was very, very important. Very, very important. I never forget, Sunday going to visit relatives, and it's like every relative that we would go and visit. Everybody had, everybody specialized in something, cooking greens, cooking a certain type of meat, baking pound cakes. And, just sharing that, there was no such thing as, you call up and say, is it okay if I come over? You would just go and visit relatives, and that always stood out to me. The importance and the value that was put on family, which is different than today. As far as the generations that were within the family. I remember visiting relatives, and even within my own immediate family. I remember my mother and father. After we moved out of the projects, we moved to the Union Miles area, 12309 Oakfield. We moved to 12309 Oakfield, and it was the first home that we had purchased. But the home that we purchased on 12309 Oakfield, my parents, was with my uncle Albert and his wife and his daughter Gloria. So, you know, the whole value of just cooperative economics, pooling limited resources together to purchase property. And I know that, you know, once I got married, my brother got married, you know, we emulated our mother and our father.
Sorry, wrong
and we bought a house together.
Wow.
You know, on Winslow, 5515. You know, we bought a house together.
So I remember, excuse me, the water went down the wrong pipe. We did that. We were always at my aunt's house, my cousin's house, and you know, it was always a cookout. It was always family gatherings.
Right, always family.
Always.
Family. And that's what stood out to me, you know, the most. You know, my cousins and my uncles and aunts, and that stands out. And also, what stands out is Antioch Baptist Church. Antioch Baptist Church was our family. Antioch was the one for my immediate family. And then there was also what Reverend Larry Harris is now, Mount Olive Baptist Church on 126. That was where the Porters were the other side of the family that attended that church. But church was very, very important. I remember at Antioch being baptized by, Dr. McKinney, my brother Ron and Donna and I being baptized. My uncle started the credit union, the Antioch Baptist Credit Union, but he also started most of the church credit unions in Cleveland. My uncle Moses Hill, they used to call him Mr. Black Credit Union, you know, because of all the credit unions that he started not only in Cleveland but around the state of Ohio and as far as Pittsburgh. But I remember him, starting the Antioch Baptist Church Credit Union.
Now, church was another thing. Some of the worst whoopings we got is messing up in Sunday school. And them deacons would call my daddy and tell on us. They did not play about kids going to church.
That's right. I remember junior church, and this was after Sunday school, instead of going to the regular church with the adults, they had what was called junior church. So we would attend junior church. One of the individuals that was in Sunday school with me and attended junior church, she's no longer with us, was Jerry Burns. Jerry Burns, the former executive director for over 30-some years of Friendly Inn. But I remember those relationships as a result of church. I remember the church picnics.
Oh my God!
Oh, I remember the
church picnic. Another thing I remember. When you would have a vacation Bible school.
Oh, yes, vacation Bible
school. And I remember the graham crackers and the milk.
Yes. And I remember the credit union banquet that we had at Antioch Baptist Church. But all those things stand out, those relationships with who I went to Sunday school with, who I was in junior church with. All those relationships for those that are still alive and those that have transitioned.
So relationships are important.
Oh, relationships
in life.
Are
and
very
I think,
important.
you know what, Paul, I got to say, I think this was missing today. Because we've replaced relationships with technology. You go to any restaurant, you look around, people aren't even communicating. Everybody's face is in the phones. And relationships are important. Listen, Hope Haven, y'all ain't going to believe this. Paul Hill is in this space. Now, y'all might be like, who is Paul Hill? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Come, because I'm always inviting people. I don't think he knew what he was coming to.
I didn't.
No, he just said yes, because we have a friendship.
But anything you ask, I'm going to respond.
Oh, what
There's
a
certain
blessing.
people in Cleveland that I respond
What
to
a blessing.
immediately. And that would be Yvonne Pointer because of just who she is and
what a blessing.
My respect for her.
Thank you. What was your experience coming into the space, to the room?
You know what I thought of? Marquita, my soulmate, my wife.
I love her.
Of 56 years. She has a space that whenever there's a special occasion or a seasonal occasion, she will put certain things in those spaces.
Hey, Michelle.
But your whole house represents these sacred space. What's up on the wall, the furniture, the ambiance of just your house
In the hood.
In the hood is a sacred space.
Yeah. Danita
It's
Harris
very comforting.
is very comforting, yeah.
The books, what's up on the walls,
Yeah.
the art.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a very comforting, sacred
Danita
space.
Harris told me when she comes, you know, we talk about this space. She said, girl, your whole house feels like it. People go in the basement and they said, this is amazing. And you know why? Because that was important to me when my daughter was murdered and I had to live in spite of. Then I had a simple prayer. I said, well, God, would you turn my house into a home where people would just want to come? Because I didn't want to be alone in that space with all of that agony and that grief. And I found that if I could share the space, it wouldn't be so traumatic.
Right.
So I wanted people just to stop by and sit and stop by and get a piece of cake or stop by and have a cup of tea or something. And that's what it is. I opened it up for people to just, they're helping me. They don't realize it.
Well, I would tell you mission accomplished. And it's about bringing, you know, growing up, what stands out. It seems like I was in a, you know, went through a time machine, entering your space.
Hallelujah.
Because it took me back to my,
Hallelujah.
to my aunts.
Big Mama then.
Yeah, Big Mama and my, you know, my aunts.
Listen, Michelle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's important to me.
A safe and caring
And safe.
space.
My son
Safe and caring space.
calls me because they always know I got something sweet on the counter, whether it's some cake. I made rice pudding yesterday because in case somebody stops by, I want to have something to offer. And that's exactly what I wanted to create. That's exactly. And then, you know, recently married, my husband is from Alabama, and he's welcoming too. He's used to it. So, Paul, it's so many people here all the time.
Well, this is an Alabama house.
It's Alabama. You said that walking out without knowing.
Alabama North, this is an Alabama house right here.
You said it without knowing. I said, did he just say Alabama? Well, my husband never says, why are all these people here? The kids on the street come to the door. Miss Pointer, you got any popsicles? Miss Pointer, can we get some? And so this is just when I needed a reason to live, Paul. I'm telling you, I needed. Some people are. Their existence is based on materialism. Well, I got to a place where that didn't matter. I needed something more. And so that is my reason. We've been doing this broadcast since October 1st, 2016.
Wow.
People have come to this space.
Wow.
Over 400 or 500 people. You name it. Judges, prosecutors, politicians, ministers, because they're welcome here.
Well, thank you. I feel special. One thing in particular about this room that we're in now, because I love books. You know, my wife loves books. My children love books, and the books that you have in here, the books and the art, the plaque, your daughter's picture. I mean, it's just a very comforting space.
I have books everywhere. If you go upstairs in my library, it's books. And when I go to people's houses and I don't see books, I'm like, how they live in this house with no books?
What? Right.
You know, but then I love to read. And then even the one you migrated towards.
Right.
You know, I love Hope Haven. We have the Paul Hill in Hope Haven. Now, we don't have a discussion set up. We just want to flow with whatever, because you got people listening, and I know it's almost like sitting within where people are just need something. And so I'm just going to ask you to share what's on your heart. We talked about who was Little Paul, but why don't you bring us up to date with how did you get to be the Paul Hill? And if y'all don't know who he is, you better Google. How did that start?
You know, we touched upon it a little bit, you know, a lot. Well, the majority of it has to do with, you know, someone asked me, you know, are you working on your memoirs? Yes and no. You know, I'm being pushed. There's a good friend of mine, Hakeem Malabutu, who lives in Chicago. He's a publisher. and he was asking me, would I be interested in doing memoirs or not. And I told him I had to think about
Please.
it. But in thinking about it, I think the majority of, well, a significant part of my life, the first 20 years, relative to who I am, and to answer the question, who am I, it has to be attributed to my family community life. My mother, my father, my uncles, and my aunts. In those first 20 years, I just lost an aunt. She was the oldest person, on the paternal side of my family, my Aunt Evelyn Hill. But one thing about her, and I thought about, and I shared a few words at her funeral, was it stands out about her husband, my uncle, my father's brother, was LU70895.
LU7.
0895.
LU70895.
That's her that's their telephone number. Now, why would I remember? Why would I remember almost 80
My
years
sweet
of
bride.
old? And I remember her, visiting her, and I remember her carrying me when I was a child. Why would I remember LU70895?
Wow.
And why would I remember LO16919, which was my uncle Moses and Aunt Thelma's numbers?
Wow.
But again, that kind of reflects those caring and safe spaces that I was brought up in, you were brought up in, and those numbers. Whenever there was an emergency or anything, there were certain numbers that you had to memorize.
Yes.
When you couldn't get in touch with your mother and father, you would call your special uncles and aunts.
Yes.
And to this day, from childhood to now, because they never got rid of those numbers.
No.
They changed them to numerical. They went from the alphabetical to the numerical. But I always remember those numbers. So that goes back to the importance of family, and community. Those special places, those special people. Antioch Baptist Church. 12309 Oakfield, where I grew up. 5515 Eldermere, where I grew up. But those first 20 years, family was key and responsible for me developing into who I am. Now, the next segment of my life, I would say, where I've spent the most time would be being married. I got married in 1969. Now, let me share with you how my wife and I met.
I'd love to hear it.
Now, I was...
And he's still smiling.
So, I went to college in 1964. I went to Ohio University. I left John Adams High School and went to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. And I had, Athens, Ohio, at Ohio University were 22,000 students. Of the 22,000, only at that time, 300 of us were black.
Wow.
At that time. So, and getting roommates, the chances of getting, because there were 3 people in a room, the chances of getting all black roommates were very remote.
Wow.
But for whatever reason, my 2 roommates were black.
Wow.
Were black. So I was very, very fortunate. Frank McDonald from Zanesville, Ohio, and Julian Moise from Cincinnati, Ohio. So Julian had a good friend named Earl Greer. Earl Greer, we became close friends. But I remember we had what was called Little Sisters Weekend, and his cousin came down to visit him from Cincinnati, Ohio. So he introduced me to his cousin. When I laid my eyes on his cousin, I said, "This is the person who I'm going to marry."
From the first time you saw her?
From the first time I saw her.
Shut
now,
up.
This is what I told myself. So I took her to the student union, and in the area where blacks congregated in the student union was called the Bunch of Grapes Room. So we sat down, and this is my first time meeting her. And I looked across, "I'm going to marry you." She looked at me and said, "Are you crazy? You don't even know me. You don't even know me." And at this time, I was a junior, and she was still a senior in high school. So by the time I was a senior, I was married.
Wow. How did you know?
I just knew. I had this feeling that she was the one. Now, and I didn't have a lot of girlfriends when I was in school. I didn't tell you the truth. I did not have. I had girlfriend friends, but I did not have a what we know as a girlfriend. You know, from through 12th grade. There were girls I took out, but never a girlfriend.
And so, how long y'all been married?
Now we've been married for 56 years.
Wow.
7 children.
Wow.
And 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
And 10 grandchildren. And it seems like just yesterday that we got married. We got married in Cincinnati at the AME Church, Brown Chapel AME Church. And for 50-some years, this is part of my development too. You know, with my soulmate Marquita, we grew up together.
Wow.
We grew up together, and you know, we're not only husband and wife. She's not only my soulmate. She's also my best friend.
Come on.
She's also my best friend.
Come on, somebody better tag her.
We're a union, and you can't have a union. You know, a union is made up of 2 separate parts. Her and myself make up this union of where we are now in our 56th year of being together.
Now, can I ask the question? Did that merge? Was that work? Did it just happen? Did it fall out the sky? What made it work?
I guess if what made it work is we both had sense of humor. We loved travel. We loved reading. We loved
things
books.
in common.
We had things in common. We loved writing. We loved poetry. We would always talk through anything.
Wow.
You know, if I had a problem or she had a problem, we would come together and try to resolve those problems.
Wow.
She had her thing, I had my thing. She had her interests, I had my interests.
Wow.
Giving her enough space.
Space.
Her giving me enough space.
Uh-huh.
Kind of brought us closer together. It's like a hand. A hand, you got 5 fingers.
Come on, y'all, listen.
But when you put those 5 fingers together, you have a fist. So that kind of represents us. We had our own separate identities. But again, when it was necessary to come together and having something that was in common interest, because she was an only child.
Wow.
I came from a family of 3 brothers.
Okay.
There were 3 brothers. My younger brother Donald, my brother Ronald, and my brother Victor, who's 13 years younger than myself.
Well, Donald, Ronald, were they twins?
No, they weren't twins. Donald passed away after he graduated from Central State. Ronald just retired about 6 years ago, and he and Pat, live in Florida. We were the ones that bought the house together over on Eldermere in Shaker, and we also went to the same college, and we were roommates in college. And my wife always wanted a big family since she was an only child.
Hope Haven, I want y'all to do me a favor. If you don't share nothing, tag this to your page ever again. My son Spanky, when his sister was murdered, it was 10 of us, 6 boys and 4 girls.
Mm-hmm.
So my son was used to family and big families, and so he was about 12 years old. And one day he said to me, "Ma," now Gloria was murdered. He said, "I'm just thinking my children are not going to have lots of aunts and uncles." Now he's 12 years old. And I turned and said to him, "Well, if you expected me to give him some aunts and uncles, it's not going to happen." He said, "You know what I'll do, Ma?" He said, "I'll marry a girl with a lot of brothers and sisters." Now that was his mind at 12 years old.
Wow.
And he did.
Wow.
So his wife has a big family, which means his children get to experience aunts and uncles. Because he grew up with 6 uncles and 3 aunts. And family was important to him. Hope Haven, we've got the Paul Hill. Hey, Marquise. See, he believes that Donald and Ronald. Who was your dad? See, they're talking to us now.
Wow.
Marquise, who was your dad? Anyway, hi, Tanaya. We have Paul Hill here, and when I say it's almost like sitting with the elders. He's a world traveler. You've been to Ghana. I could just give you this
You
screen.
know, we've been on every continent traveling except Antarctica.
What?
Every continent except Antarctica.
Wow.
The one continent where we spent most of the time would be the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Egypt, Ethiopia, South Africa, Benin, Togo. My wife is Marquita. She's French speaking. One of my daughters is French speaking, and two others are Spanish speaking. So being bilingual was very important because a lot of people don't realize the number one language spoken by black people in the world is French.
Wow.
French, and that has to do with colonization in the French, all the different countries.
This man
that
got
they colonized.
history. Let me tell you, even when you go to Ghana, the average child speaks 2 and 3 languages.
Yes.
You know, they may not have no food and no Cadillacs,
Yes.
but they can speak several languages.
Very good education system.
Yeah.
And Ghana's, one of our favorite places. Love Ghana. Fante people, the Ashanti people, love them. The Evoy people, love the culture, love the history, love the people, love the food.
Now listen. I'm just almost in awe. I don't even know what to say. When you think about all the places you've traveled in the world, you talked about Africa. What would you say to the people who are just still when life is moving around them?
You know, travel gives you a better appreciation of yourself and other people. A lot of times, we see ourselves as a center. And if we're not exposed to different environments, different people, different cultures, it's a disservice to us. It's a disservice to our children. It helps us develop and grow when we expose ourselves to different people, different cultures. And travel has done this. One of the things my wife did was to start her own travel business, which was called Sankofa Tours, which specialized in West Africa, basically being Senegal, Ghana, Benin, Togo, South Africa, as well as Brazil. So through her, I did a lot of traveling, just helping her with her travel company. But traveling is so important.
I took my granddaughter, she was 10, to Australia and New Zealand.
Two favorite places.
Yeah. And guess what I told her? We were in New Zealand touring this college. I said, you can go to this college
Yes.
if you choose. Now, as we speak right now, she's on a college tour. She's down at Fisk and down in Alabama and everything. And our whole goal, exposure. And guess what? Can I say this? When I was a little girl, I didn't have an opportunity to travel, but I traveled through books.
Yes. That's what we got in common. Traveling through books.
I can take a book and I
Yes.
can see the world.
Yes.
That's what made me want to go to Alaska, because
Yes.
I read about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? 6 months? Darkness? I wanted to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, travel through books. But what if you had to say some of your favorite books? Tell them what they are.
My favorite book, one of my favorite writers,
Write it down, y'all.
and growing up would be Charles Dickens. And my favorite book that he wrote was A Tale of Two Cities.
Cities.
It's
Yes.
the best of times, it's the worst of times. But he wrote about just common folks. He was a populist writer. He wrote about common folks and class differences and inequities. And I just love
Back then.
Yeah, back then. Mark Twain, is another, on top of black writers, Richard Wright, Ellison, I just love books, and I love all books from A to Z. I love science fiction. I love biographies. I love autobiography. I love all forms of writing.
I love words because they stretch your mind.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, somebody on the radio today was talking about Viktor Frankl.
Yep.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
And as soon as I heard it, I just smiled.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, what an amazing. I got her over there.
Yeah, Zora
The
Neale
bluest eyes and
yeah,
Sulu, yeah.
Yes.
Now, and Toni Morrison.
Yes.
There are writers who challenge you. You know, like when Beloved came out, people couldn't stand it, but I was so mesmerized by the words of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to admit, in the beginning, I didn't understand it either until she came to Cleveland State and she opened the book and started reading, and those characters took up residence in my mind. I was like, oh my God. So then when I read the book, I didn't just read it, I could hear the characters talking.
Yes.
Listen, Hope Haven, we have Paul here
Oh,
tonight.
I love
This is incredible because you are, can I say the word icon? I don't know if that's not even good enough, but I don't want to talk. I want you to talk. What message do you want to share with us? We have our cups out. You know, we go from 8 to 9. We have a few more minutes to just listen and learn. Listen and learn. Listen and learn. I know I pray a lot. That's the only way I make it through. I don't even know if we have as much in this generation of the importance of prayer. But if you don't mind, I'm just turn the camera over to you, and you can just empty your heart out. Y'all better tell somebody, Paul, yeah, he is a true historian. Okay. You just whatever you want to talk about.
You know, identity is so important, and as far as and it relates, and I get this from another one of my favorite writers is Frantz Fanon, who was born in Martinique. You know, he was educated in Europe. He became a psychiatrist. You know, he was a writer. He fought in the Algerian Revolution. But he was so important to myself and wife that we named our family who lives in Baltimore. And, you know, really proud of him. I'm proud of all my children, but Fanon and Frantz Fanon. But there's a quote in one of his books, Wretched of the Earth. I think it's the chapter on culture. And the quote, which has always been very important to me, is out of each generation, out of relative obscurity, must define who they are, carry it out, or betray it. And what that means is that we must develop a sense of purpose. And once we develop that sense of purpose, then we must carry that purpose out. And if we don't carry that purpose out, then we're betraying what it is that we have identified as our purpose for living, our purpose for being alive. And a purpose is like a mission statement. Any kind of organization has a mission statement. It kind of keeps you in line and provides you with direction. So that's very important. And related to that quote that I just cited is the question of who am I? Question of identity. The second question of identity is am I who I really think I am? And then the third one is, am I the best I could be? So the phase of life that I'm in now, because I feel I have a good sense of identity in knowing who I am, and answering that second question is, am I the best I should have been? But the phase of life I'm in now, at 80 years of age, because I have more years behind me than I have in front of me, is what, relative to my sense of identity, what is the best thing that I could do right now as far as being a servant? And that has a lot to do with my grandchildren. You know, I didn't have grandfathers. Both my grandfathers died before I was born. You know, they died after my father and my mother was born, because they never knew who their fathers were. So being a grandparent, especially a grandfather, has been very important to me. So the majority of my time is spent with my grandchildren. And as I said, I have 10 grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren that live next to me, and I have 4 other grandchildren that live in the city. So, you know, being very supportive of them. Two of them have already graduated from college. One is Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. Another one just graduated from Kent. And then I have two that are in college. And then I have my youngest being 5, but spending a lot of time with my grandchildren and being a grandfather. That's very important to me. Another thing that's important to me, I'd like to leave you with, is the question that we have to all ask and answer. And that is, how are the children? Because again, children are important. Children are what make us immortal. Children are what make us immortal. And children, everything that we do, decisions that we make, no matter if we're a judge, we work in car manufacturing, we don't have a job, but any kind of job or whatever we do in life has to relate to asking and answering that question, how are the children? Now, where did I get that from? I'll never forget when my wife and I were, Marquita and I were in Kenya, and we were in the Masai Mara. The Masai Mara is the Rift Valley area where the original men and women came from. Humanity came from, civilization came from that Rift Valley. But there's a group of people there called the Masais. The Masais are some of the greatest warriors on the face of the earth. But what's important to the Masai people, the women and the men, what's important to them are two things that's important to them: their children and their cattle. Cattle, as far as that, in order to have children being important, you have to be able to feed them. You have to be able to provide housing and clothing for them. And cattle provide that. They use cattle for food. They use cattle for building shelter, for themselves and their children. But children are very important to them. So the greeting, any day that you come in contact with another Maasai, your greeting is, and how are the children?
And how are the children?
And if you don't have any children, you still ask that, because the response to that, and the response to all of us should be that we try to achieve, is we want to respond by saying the children are well. Now you look at what has gone on in the past, what is going on today. I think of I just got finished doing a chapter of a book that was written by Hakeem Matabutu and Lamont Hill. As far as what is going on in Gaza, you're talking about 54,000 children, 54,000 people have been killed, and 14,000 of them have been children. But again, the chapter of the book that I wrote, which is titled "And How Are the Children," talk not only about the children in Gaza, the Palestinian children that have been lost, the Jewish children, on that horrible day, that were lost. But looking at other places too, like in the Sudan, looking in the DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, looking at wherever we are in the world, what is happening to children, especially as it relates to war and violence. It seems like the most vulnerable ones are the ones that are hurt the most. That would be women and children that are victims past and present. So children represent the future, and if we don't take care of the children, we don't ask that question, and how are the children, and we don't respond to that and really establish a life of doing whatever we do, it has to be in the best interest of children. Because children represent hope, children represent the future. So again, the question is that we have to ask every day, and how are the children? And we want to be able to respond by the policies that we do, the way that children are nurtured at home, socialized, acculturated. We want to be able to provide them with the best type of environment, so we'll be able to respond. The children are well, because the children represent the future.
Paul, I gotta say thank you. But when I look at children today, I'm concerned.
I am too.
I'm concerned about a generation that seems to be waxing younger and younger, without any guidance, and without that generation such as myself, that age like yourself, they say, don't do that, sit down. So, what is our responsibility to care for the children? Because one thing we do in Hope Haven, we still send money to Ghana to help feed and educate children. And I tell them in Hope Haven, you don't get to live and don't do anything.
Right.
It don't work like that. So how can we help the children? And many people don't want to be hands-on, don't want to get involved, but tell us.
You know, one way I always believe in you know, you have to start with what's manageable. And what I mean by that, first of all, we have to start taking care of our own children, our own grandchildren, our own nieces and nephews that are in proximity to us, that are in the close circle with us. We have to start taking care of, first of all, our own children. You know, I think of my involvement in the National Rites of Passage Institute, and Rites of Passage is just preparing children relative to the seasons of life that we go through. And one of the most difficult seasons of life is that of childhood and adolescence. And that's a time when children and adolescents, they need us as adults. They need us as role models. I think of adolescents relative to my own children, and not only working with them, you know, through our developing rites of passage programs, but their friends, and then extending it beyond them to when I was at East End Neighborhood House for 30-some years, establishing programs for them, and then getting calls from around Greater Cleveland, then getting calls from around the state, then getting calls from around the United States, and then becoming international. But the place you have to start is with those that are close to you, being your own children.
Now, how do you feel COVID put a gash in that as far as the children? Because it seems to me that some of them are experiencing disconnect. How do we reach them? And are there still rites of passage programs, or can we send them through something, or can we go through something?
COVID is interesting, and you know, I look at my family's experience with COVID during those 3 years. As I mentioned earlier, my daughter and her family live next door to us. And so our houses are connected. We have what we call a compound.
A compound, I like that.
So with the compound, you know, during COVID, we got even closer together. And then my other daughter that lived nearby, we did everything together. We had special activities for the, you know, special activities. You know, they were homeschooled, but we took them through that. That was very sad about COVID is, you know, when I was growing up, elders within the family were taken care of within the families. You know, some were in nursing homes, but you did not have nursing homes, and elders weren't put in nursing homes the way that they are today. They were within the family. Within the families that we grew up in, there was not one generation. There were as many as 4 generations
in the same house.
In the same household.
Yeah.
So there are certain advantages to that. You know, when you have that many generations within the household, as far as socialization or culturalization. Today, and especially during COVID, there were many seniors, and they're suffering from post-traumatic stress as a result of the COVID period of time, because they were isolated and they were by themselves.
I know.
So the ones that were able to make it successfully through COVID were those that were where there were at least 2 and 3 generations within that family where they took care of one another.
Wow.
And we would have been better off if we had those many generations during this emergency period of time, but there are a lot of them today that have not recovered from that as a result of being isolated.
Youth as well.
Youth as well.
Youth as well.
That didn't benefit from those generations within the household.
Wow. So listen, Hope Haven, we have, they say you speak in volumes. We have Paul Hill here, and we have a few minutes. If you have any questions, you go ahead and we'll try to answer them. But you talked about the East End neighborhood, that, you know, you were there, executive director. Is East End still?
You know, it's still there. East End is close to 120 years old. I was there for 33 years as executive director. I was the longest executive director that they've had in their history. You know, it started off, it was started by Hungarians.
Wow.
To help them to assimilate into American culture. So culture has always, and identity has always been important to East End as far as those that migrated in and migrated out. So when I came there, and that's when the community in Buckeye Woodland Hills became majority black, I put a big emphasis on Americans, that being very important. So that's what we were able to accomplish during those 33 years I was there, as far as serving the community and whoever was in the community.
Do you think a lot of disconnect is driven by fear?
Oh yes. A lot is driven by fear, especially the period of time that we're in now, relative to the leadership. The leadership that exists now. They're driven by fear. They want people to be fearful of them, and they want to create an atmosphere of fear. Because whenever you have an atmosphere of fear, you can take control. You can control people by zeroing in on their fears. Fears relative to different ethnic groups, based on race, based on whatever the sexual persuasion is. Keeping people fearful of one another. The whole game of divide and conquer is based on fear. And the period of time that we're in now is in the height of that fear mongering.
So how do we combat that?
Well,
I know what I would say, but I think communication.
Oh yes, communication, love, hope. I'm looking at some of the books that you have in here. I came in here and I saw hope, I saw courage, I saw love. Those type of things that got us to where we are now, and probably where your audience. Just love, communication. Respect. Those all represent and are attributes that are necessary for a healthy relationship. And the thing is, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have those things. So those things have to be perpetuated and passed on to our children. Everything that we need to know has been said and done before. We just have to tap into those things.
Because there's nothing new under the sun.
No, there's nothing new.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun.
And whatever we're going through, somebody been through.
Exactly.
And what we have to do is listen. That's another thing. I was telling somebody the other day, we had the elder mothers teaching us how to be mothers, how to be wives. I remember Mother Boyd used to talk to us. She said, by the time you cook a box of instant mashed potatoes, you could peel. They taught you how to prepare meals. So you have to be willing to also listen.
Yes, we have to reach back into what is responsible for us being here today. Some of those things, everything in the past, you can't use today, but there are a lot of things in our past that were useful. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are. And this is nothing but another episode of many episodes that we've gone through. The trauma that we're experiencing, those negative things we experienced, we have experienced them before. And through faith, through prayer, through meditation, we are where we are today.
And they made it.
And
we're going to make it.
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 And that's why we have to say hope. See, hope is the substance of things hoped for.
Yes.
The evidence of things not seen. You don't have to see how you're going to make it. You just have to know you're going to make it.
Yes.
We think about people who went through horrendous things. Dr. King, just name anybody. They got to a place they had to have hope because they couldn't see it. And that's why you might feel tonight that you don't see it, but just have some hope.
Have some hope, have some faith, prayer, meditation.
Minister Beard, just have some hope.
Yes. Amen. Ashe.
So I gotta tell you, see our hours. I could sit here all day and talk with them, but if people want to learn more about you, or can they follow you? Are you on Facebook? Are you teaching anywhere? And are you writing anywhere?
Well, right now I'm the publisher. There was a journal that one of my mentors, who passed away, Usini Eugene Perkins out of Chicago, started what was called the Black Child Journal, that focused on issues and practices around black children. He started it in 1979, and I ended up in 2015, because he was becoming older in age, helping our elders. I became the co-publisher. Since he passed in 2023, I am now the publisher of the Black Child Journal.
And where can we get that?
And you can look it up. Just look on the internet, Black Child Journal, all together, blackchildjournal.com. blackchildjournal.com. And also the national.org, NROPI.org. But Black Child Journal, blackchildjournal.com, it will list, we publish biannually. We have different editions that focus on, one of them is the American Dream in the Black Child, Culture in the Black Child, Rites of Passage in the Black Child, Faith in the Black Child, Trauma in the Black Child. And we do a call for papers, and the call for papers go out to parents. They can respond. Young people can respond. And what we do is we do an edition from these individuals that talk about issues as well as practices, their successes in dealing with anything related to children, and them being able to say that the children are well. So, and then I've written, my book is Coming of Age, African American Rites of Passage. That was published by who we just lost, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. Some of you might be familiar with him, but we just lost him within the last month. And again, I want to make mention of two of the oldest black independent publishing companies where we could get these books that we need would be Third World Press in Chicago, Dr. Hakeem Matabutu, Third World Press, which is the oldest black independent bookstore in the United States. And then also Black Classic Press with Paul Coates, the father of Ta-Nehisi Coates. But these are our own publishing companies that print books that you can't get anywhere else, that are out of print. You could get them through Black Classic Press and Third World Press.
And some of her books are being banned, am I right?
Yes, a lot of books aren't being carried anymore, but books that are hard to get that aren't being carried anymore, you can get through Black Classic Press, African American Images, and Third World Press.
And closing with this, how important is it for us to know our history?
If you don't know your history, then you will end up making mistakes and repeating things over and over and over again. History, it's like having a clock and compass. It tells you your place in space, your time in space, so you won't make the same mistakes over and over and over again. That's the importance of history. If we don't write our own history, it's like the lion, his history will always be written by the hunter. And until the lion is able to tell his own story, his story will be a mystery.
Wow.
And because our story right now is being written by other people. But we have a lot of folks out there that have written good history about us, and they don't want us to know about that history. But there are a lot of books out there that they try to keep from us that tell us about our history.
Well, even when you go to Ghana and you visit places like the Slave Dungeon, and you look at what they went through and what it took for me and you to get to this couch today, somebody survived it.
Yes.
I mean, come on. When I went in that space, I'm like, how was that even possible? And then to go across the water in those confinements. And then, so when we think we can't take it, or we think we're going through so much, we need to say, my God, what did our ancestors go through? So I've heard people say we are the hope and dream of the slaves.
Yes, we are. And think about, 1619, when those 20 and odd, and they came from what we know is now the country of Angola, Congo. 40% of the first enslaved Africans, or Africans that were brought here enslaved, were from the Angola, Congo area. 40% of them. And, of those that ended up in this country, when they want to say it's 40 to 50 million that were brought to the hemispheres, the Western Hemisphere. And of the ones that were brought, only 5% ended up in the United States. The other 95% ended up in Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America.
Wow.
40% of those that were brought ended up in Brazil. The country with the most black people on the face of the earth would be Nigeria, number one. The second country would be Brazil. The third country would be the United States.
Wow.
So you're talking about three different places. Nigeria, Brazil, and the United States, where our cousins ended up. We're all cousins. We're all part of the diaspora that aren't on the continent of Africa itself. But there's a lot of history and a lot of culture. And again, you have to remember Africa. You could fit the United States in Africa 3 times.
Yeah.
From east to west is 5,000 miles. From north to south is 5,000 miles.
Yeah.
Made up of 54 different countries.
Wow.
The future of the world is dependent upon what is taking place in Africa now, a lot that we don't hear about, specifically with the leadership that's in Burkina Faso and Mali, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Those 3 countries in particular, where the leadership, you have very positive, strong leadership. One of the things is that the powers to be have never wanted a United States of Africa. 2 people that fought for a United States of Africa, one of them both of them were, as far as I'm concerned, were killed. One of them was Kwame Nkrumah, the first independent leader of the country of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. And the second one was Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, who they ended up assassinating because both of them wanted a United States of Africa. They wanted that, and that was a threat because the powers to be have always wanted Africa to be divided. That way they could come in, which they're doing today, and try to take all the resources that will benefit us and not benefit Africa. The most wealthiest country on a continent on the face of the earth as far as resources is Africa. So Africa represents the past, the present, and the future.
So much history. So much history. It's almost like it's an injustice to have just 1 hour with you. Would you come back?
Oh, yeah. This house is special. You're special.
You
this
gotta
house
come
is sacred.
back.
You're sacred.
You gotta come back.
Yes,
and you gotta bring your wife.
Okay.
Yes. And see, I'll let y'all just take it. Because, listen, Hope Haven, do me a favor. Share this to your page. How do people get in touch? Are you on Facebook?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. I put a lot of things up on Facebook. A lot of things they try to take down, but it's on Facebook. But remember, blackchildjournal.com, blackchildjournal.com.
And so you can reach out to him in Messenger. This has been...
Yeah, and my email address is nropi
Wait, say it slow.
nropi@aol.com. nropi@aol.com.
So would you all do me a favor? Reach out to Paul Hill. Tell him thank you. Now, every time we sign off, I give them a homework assignment. Because I don't want them just to come and go. What is it that they can do to advance themselves in a homework assignment for today?
Well, first of all, what's important is most of you, and I hope most of you, look upon or should think of your body as a temple, relative to what you eat, relative to the importance of exercise. In order to do anything that's going to benefit anybody, yourself, those that you love, children, you have to take care of yourself physically, spiritually, and mentally. Physically, spiritually, and mentally. You have to treat yourself and your body as a temple. And you have to put the right type of food in it. You have to put the right type of words in it as far as what you read or what you expose yourself to, the type of people that you put yourself around. One of the things I say we use rites of passage for is to help people or prevent people from having an allergic reaction to a socially toxic environment. Let me repeat that. Rites of passage, which is to help you ask and answer the question, who am I? Am I all I ought to be? The way that we use it is, rites of passage is a way of preventing people from having an allergic reaction.
An allergic reaction.
To a socially toxic environment. Things that we can do to prevent us from having an allergic reaction. Like, when you have an allergic reaction to maybe a certain type of food you can't eat. to take an antihistamine. You
Yeah.
have to take an antihistamine to kind of get you back to feeling normal.
Yes.
So I'm just saying we have a process called rites of passage, which is a cultural antihistamine, because it focuses on your culture, who you are as a people, your history, to keep you from having an allergic reaction to all these negative people and negative folks out there that do not want you to be able to answer the question, who am I?
Yeah.
They don't want you to know who you are.
Yeah. Because if you ever find that out,
Yes.
you are a power that cannot be reckoned with.
Exactly.
So that's why I read and I feed my spirit. I nourish my spirit, man. Because that's something this world can't touch. Now, you can do me bodily harm, but you can't get to that,
Exactly.
which is inside of me. Listen. I know we over our time. This is crazy. This is bananas. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come back, please.
Thank you.
Hope Haven, would y'all do me a favor? Share this to your page. His email is nropi@aol.com. We want you to go to Third World Press and then the blackjournal.com.
Blackjournal.com.
Blackjournal.com. Renee, I love you. God bless you, Hope Haven.